Out of the many birds to draw inspiration from, perhaps one of the most iconic is that of the bald eagle. Over the years, eagle drawings have become really powerful symbols of strength and freedom due to their iconic representation of such characteristics within lore and storytelling. What's also great about the bald eagle is its very unique feather coating, which provides us a great opportunity and challenge to represent these features through the use of color and shading techniques. So with that being said, hey guys, welcome to another video by artandcontext.org, where we explore various art related topics, and in today's video we will be looking at how to draw the bald eagle, specifically with some colored pencils, some pen and some graphite pencils. Now the drawing process is quite simple, and the way in which we start is we want to first establish the general shape of the eagle. So using a light pencil, the intention is we want to start by drawing a simple sketch of the eagle. So this is where we start to work out the basic fundamental shapes of the bird and how they are placed together. A good suggestion is to also look at some bird poses of the actual bald eagle to get a sense of scale and placement of various features, but the intention here is to form the bald eagle drawing with the basic shapes that kind of form from the head of the eagle to the body, and then ultimately to how the wings kind of sit alongside the body and then through to the legs. So we do want to take our time with the placement as well as scale, making sure all the shapes are proportional, and as we slowly start to establish the fundamental shapes of the bird, it is going to make the sketching of the various details much more easier, which takes us to the next step. So the next thing we want to do is we want to actually start sketching and refining the actual features. So once we have established the bird in its basic shapes, we can give those shapes a light erasing, and this is just going to leave a little bit of ghost marks, which will kind of assist us in the refining sketching process of our bald eagle drawing. So we want to basically start sketching in the different features from the head to the claws. So try to keep your sketch quite light at this point. This makes it much easier again to kind of fix any silly mistakes during this early process. When sketching the feathers into a bald eagle's wings, this is a particular point that we want to note, is we will find that they are quite layered. So the bald eagle does have a variety of feather lengths in its wings, which creates a variety of feathers that are kind of stacked on top of each other, or at least appear to be stacked on top of each other. Now another unique feature that we want to make sure we spend some time on is the head. So when it comes to the head area of the eagle, the beak is quite large in proportion to the face and the eye is quite rounded. We also will note that the brow of the bald eagle, or the area just above the eye, is generally overlapping the upper section of the eye, giving the eagle a very unique angry expression, and this is a very unique and iconic feature of the bald eagle, so we really want to make sure we capture this quality. The bald eagle also has distinct differences in feather quality in the head area. Once again, we'll find that with most birds, they have different feather lengths in different areas of their actual body. So this is a very unique quality to the appearance of many birds, including the bald eagle. So these feathers in the head area do create a very distinct visual quality that is different to the feather length in the actual body. So that is something we just want to note. But again, try to spend a good portion of time on the actual facial details in the eagle drawing. We really want to make sure that we allow the beak to have this curving downward quality, and that is placed quite high up in the facial area. You can also use the eye kind of to assist you in terms of the placement of the beak, where the beak kind of goes near the bottom section of the eye, then kind of curves upward as it connects to the face, and then has a downturn or curves downward as it kind of extends outward from the face. Now the next thing we want to do is we want to start adding color to the body of the eagle. So now we will transition to adding color and shading to the body features within the eagle drawing. We want to make sure that the first set of undertone colors are kind of light at this stage. So the idea is that we build up color through a set of layering. Once again, when we're working with color, we always want to make sure we're working from lighter to darker colors, especially when using kind of a drawing approach. This way we have more control over managing the tonal values. Now we want to do this by first making sure that we set an undertone of color before working in some shading. So we can actually do this with some light brown colored pencils. When it comes to the feather shape within the body area of the eagle, it is quite layered once again in terms of color values as well. So similar to the way scales are layered in a reptile's body, we want to kind of think about that in the way we kind of establish tonal variation in the feathers. So we don't need to draw these in perfectly, but we can use some dark and light brown pencils to make suggestive marks in terms of how we create this layering effect in the actual feathers. So suggestive marks mean that we can loosely draw in the basic shapes of the feathers. We also want to utilize both lighter and darker darker brown pencils to suggest which sides are more shadowed and therefore slightly darker in a brown color. So bald eagles have a very unique brown tonal range that shifts between lighter and darker browns within the feathers. However, the feathers tend to be more darker on the side, but we don't want to build up too much dark mark making. We want to kind of keep it light at this point, but we can also generously add some lighter browns around the upper winged area, which is where the lighter browns tend to be most prominent, as this area tends to be most exposed to the light source. So we can also be quite light at this point when adding those browns. And again, depending on the position or the pose of your eagle drawing, maybe you are using a reference from the internet or you're kind of drawing it in a similar process to this particular drawing, we want to already at this stage be conscious of the light source and from which direction it's coming, and this is going to assist us in our shading process as well. So obviously you want to keep the tonal values quite light in the areas that would be more exposed to the light source, but then we can obviously darken those tonal values in the areas that it would be less exposed to the light source. Now, as we kind of proceed with this process, we also want to maintain the scale-like aesthetic within the feathers of the bald eagle drawing. So we really want to try and incorporate these details with different colors of brown pencils, but we want to maintain that scale overlapping quality to kind of achieve that effect or that texture of feathers. We also want to make sure that we also have a distinct shadowed and lit side of the eagle once again. So making sure you're working with the idea of a light source in mind is definitely going to bring more three-dimensionality to your drawing and kind of result in a more realistic representation of your eagle. Now, once we have set up these basic tonal values, again, you do want to make sure you take your time. You can obviously build up these color values from lighter to darker, but once we have done so, we're going to start adding in some pen work and some pen shading to the body of the eagle, just to kind of emphasize and refine the actual qualities and shape of these various features. Now, at this point, we can start incorporating some pen shading into the eagle drawing to give it a little more contrast and depth. We can also very cautiously use our pens to enhance the outlines of the feathers in the body. Try to be strategic, however, with your pen details. By this, what I mean is that we can enhance the darkest shadowed area and be more light-handed with the least shaded areas in the eagle drawing. The aim here is to not overpower the colors, but to slightly darken the features that are shadowed and enhance the details of the feathers. This means we can add light shading to even the lit area just to emphasize the three-dimensionality, but there is almost a dark and slightly golden quality in the feathers that are in the body area of the bald eagle. So this is why we want to work predominantly with darker browns with subtle applications of lighter browns. The idea is that we want to really emphasize the shadowed areas and that transition into lighter areas as we come to the more exposed or the more illuminated side of our eagle drawing. Remember, we want to really emphasize that idea that one side is exposed to the light source and another side is less exposed to the light source. From there, we can actually start adding some color and shading to the face of the eagle drawing. So naturally, because the bald eagle doesn't have much coloration within its facial features, this makes the beak especially important as a singular colored feature in the face. So we want to utilize a combination of yellows and oranges to kind of create shifts in tonal values. Once again, when you are using colors in a drawing, you always want to think about the color variation or the tonal range and subtle shifts between the actual colors present. So in the case of a bald eagle, we see that it has this orange beak. However, it's not just orange, it kind of has these qualities of yellow, orange, little tints of red. And the idea is that the more you kind of work in these blended tonal variations, the more you're going to create a more realistic representation of shadowing without necessarily having to use just a dark medium like graphite pencil or pen to create dark areas. At this point, we want to set an undertone of light yellows and dark oranges within the beak predominantly, which we then can enhance with pen shading. So the idea is that you want to establish these colors, and by doing this, you basically set an undertone of the color, and then you can enhance them later on with some pen shading. So at this point, we do want to just make sure we set those undertones, which we can then start to outline and add some finer line work and shading cautiously to the beak with our pen details, making sure we're working really delicately. So maybe consider using something like a micron pen with really fine tips, and that way you can enhance these features. With the eye of the bald eagle drawing, again, we really want to be cautious with adding shading with our pens. The eye has a black ring around it, which we can draw with our pens as well. From there we can also proceed to add in the pupil, which is completely black as well. So from here we can also add in some lighter shading along the upper section of the eye beneath the brow, and this will also suggest that the brow is casting a subtle shadowing over the actual eye. So once we have added detail and color to the beak and the eye, we also want to start adding shading around the face to suggest a feathery quality, and we can do this by incorporating fine line work around the face of the eagle. We can also make sure that we add these lines in a singular direction, and by doing so we create a more accurate kind of uniformity within the feather placements on the face. So keeping the lines flowing in a particular direction gives a more realistic placement of how those smaller and denser feathers kind of form along the actual face. So really take your time adding in some really delicate line work to the feathery features surrounding the face. Try to keep consistency in how the feathers flow in the same direction and veer downward or move in a downward direction towards the neck of the eagle. We also want to make sure that we enhance the beak and the surrounding features near the eye within the yellows and the oranges, and we can add subtle yellows around the eye, which is kind of this normal coloration within the bald eagle's features. So make sure that you have a slight shadowing just beneath the brow to create a realistic effect within the eye. But most important, just take your time, look at a reference on the internet. The idea is that obviously there isn't necessarily coloration in the top section of the eagle given its iconic white head of feathers, but we do want to add in these subtle moments of shading with maybe a gray pencil and maybe some graphite pencil and pen to emphasize that there is still shadowing and texture to that actual quality or those feathers within the head area. The last thing you want to do is you want to make sure that we are starting to contextualize the feather of the eagle drawing. So once we have completed the body and the head of the bald eagle drawing, we want to start adding in some talons. So the talons are made up of 4 digits. However, this will vary depending on the angle at which you are obviously drawing the eagle, but the eagle does have 4 talons. The talons are also yellow in color, very unique and iconic of the bald eagle. So we want to make sure that once again we are adding in that base layer of yellow, maybe working in some little tonal variations by using some orange. And again, this is just a great way to kind of create a more realistic representation of shadowing and how it kind of gives shape to the talons, and by doing so we kind of give it a more realistic 3-dimensional quality. We can also add in some shading lines once we have set up the actual base color tones within the feet or in the talons, sorry. We can also then proceed to add in some shading and some line work that kind of creates segments within the digits, which is another unique feature and a very subtle feature within the talons. But you do want to take your time on the talons as well, again establishing those base layers of color, working in some fine outlining and line work to establish the variation of segments within the feet, and then we can proceed by adding in some sort of contextual environment to suggest that the eagle is maybe placed on a surface of some sort, and this just kind of makes it not necessarily look as if it's kind of existing in a void or just sitting in a blank space, but the idea is that we just want to contextualize the bird by establishing it on an actual surface. But otherwise guys, from there we can give our bald eagle drawing one more check, kind of going through everything, maybe working in some darker variations within the body, shifting from the shadowed side to the illuminated side, but ultimately it's a matter of just taking your time, being patient, and working in those base layers of color and then enhancing them with pen and line work. Again, using pen with colored pencils is just a good idea because pen works really well in tandem with that medium and can be a great addition in terms of enhancing those color values. So we don't want to overpower them, but we want to use our pen work and our line work and our shading techniques to kind of emphasize them and enhance them. But otherwise guys, that is it, a general and simple process of how to draw bald eagle. Very simple, very fun. Again, the most important thing here to remember is that the feathers are a very unique feature of the bald eagle, and not just the bald eagle but of various birds. So capturing the quality of various feather lengths from the head to the body to the wings is really important, and that's where you start to think about that scale-like effect that you find in fish, and kind of applying that same knowledge to how you represent feathers. Another good idea is to kind of use line work as a way of creating a feathery texture within your bird drawing, and this just emphasizes the quality of the feather texture. But make sure you establish those base colors and then refine them with your pen detailing, making sure you take your time. But otherwise guys, that is it from me today. If you did like this video and are interested in similar or related topics, maybe on bird drawing or animal drawing, you name it, please let us know in the comment section below. You can also show us some love by liking and subscribing. That helps us to grow the channel, which ultimately enables us to make more art content, kind of look into a variety of different art related topics, to make videos for you guys, which we love to do. So please do like the video, please do subscribe, and please do comment below. But otherwise, guys, that is it from me today. Thanks again for tuning in. Until next time, cheers.